Welcome into our episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. In this week's episode, we are talking about catching, and more specifically, how college coaches evaluate high school catchers. So there's 7 things that college coaches look for when evaluating a high school catcher. We're going to go through each of them. These are in no particular order. Number 1 is going to be receiving. Number 2, pop time. Number 3, blocking. Number 4, arm action. Number 5, footwork. Number 6, makeup. And then number 7 is stamina. So as I said, we're going to go through all of these and break them down further. You may be wondering, though, who I am and why am I qualified to talk about what college coaches look for and how they evaluate players, specifically catchers, in this recruiting process. So if you don't know who I am and we haven't met yet, my name is Patrick Jones. I'm a former hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization. And now I work with high school baseball players and help them get recruited across the country. I have clients who have played at every level of college baseball and are currently playing at every level of college baseball. And more importantly, I've been lucky enough to have over 300 college baseball coaches on this podcast that you're listening to or watching on YouTube. And that has allowed me to build relationships and then also just understand exactly what they're looking for in the recruiting process. As I said, we're going to start out with receiving as number 1. Now, if I did have to pick as what one is most important out of the 7, I would say number 1, which is receiving, hence the position catching, receiving. It's the same thing. So when we think of receiving, it is literally receiving, how you receive the ball. And so one way to think about it is I always look at, does the ball determine where the catcher's glove go, or does the catcher determine where the ball goes as they catch the ball? That's a very important distinction, especially when you're catching pitchers who have high velocity, really good movement, really good stuff, which is going to be the case at the college level. So do you determine where the ball goes essentially, or does the ball determine where your glove goes? Now, when we look at specifically, like, what are we looking for from a receiving standpoint, we want to think of ourselves as a presenter. Like, how are we presenting the ball? Are we presenting the ball in a way that's easy for the umpire to make a distinction, or is there a lot of movement going on before we actually receive the ball? The more movement that we have going on with our hand, with our glove, as the ball is coming in, as we're catching it, the less likely the umpire is going to give us that call. And let's think about this just from an umpire standpoint. Let's say you're standing behind home plate, you're calling a game, and as the ball is coming in, you see at the last second a lot of sudden movement with the glove. Or maybe after the pitcher or the catcher has caught the ball, there's a lot of movement one way or the other. He doesn't actually stick it. You're less likely to not only award the catcher for catching it and present it in a good way, but from a human nature standpoint, quite frankly, you're probably thinking like, oh, something must have been wrong here. And even if it's a borderline pitch, you're less likely to give that borderline pitch a strike just because there's that sudden movement at the very last second. And I would say the easiest way to think about this, as on top of everything we've already talked about from a receiving standpoint, is, are you receiving the ball in a way where you're letting the ball come to you, or are you stabbing at the ball? Are we receiving it and are we presenting it in a calm, quiet way, or are we loud and stabbing at the ball? And so you'll sometimes see that where it's like players will catch it and it's almost they're taking their glove and just stabbing right at the ball, like they have a knife and just trying to stab right at it, versus the really good catchers, they're catching it in a way where they're letting the ball come to them. It's very quiet. And honestly, it looks like it's just effortless. And that's the thing, is if we can make it look effortless, that's when you know that you know what you're doing and you're receiving the ball in a very good manner. Recently, I had Dr. Adam Maloof on the podcast, and he's done a lot of research on the importance of receiving at the college level. And one of the things that we talked about on the podcast is how for every 10 balls that a catcher turns into a strike, it equates to about 1 run for their team. So for every 10 balls a catcher catches and he turns into a strike that are technically balls, it equates to 1 run. Like, that is huge. It's massive. Before I forget, I will make sure to put that episode in this show notes. You can go and listen to that if you haven't yet. But point being is, receiving is number 1, and it is very, very important. Hence the position catching. If you're a parent listening or watching this and you want your son to be able to find the right college fit where he can thrive from an an academic and athletic standpoint. And then you also want to be able to save time and money in the recruiting process and not just go from camp to camp or showcase to showcase and not even know if it's worth your son's time. Then what I would do is head to my website, patrickjonesbaseball.com/recruiting. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan the QR code, but just fill out the application. You'll then be forwarded to a page where you'll be able to see a video, and we'll talk about all the things that my program would feature. If you're a good fit, then we can take it the next step further and schedule a meeting. But head to patrickjonesbaseball.com/recruiting and apply to work with me one-on-one in my college baseball recruiting service. Okay, we're going to go back to the podcast now. Number 2, pop time. This is going to be the sexiest one out of all of them because this is the one that everyone likes to refer to and thinks that this is the most important thing when it comes to catching. This is probably, honestly, I don't know if I'd say last, but it's the bottom tier of the 7, I would say. I probably should have put it lower for that reason. But it's the sexiest thing and everyone likes talking about it and everyone thinks it's really important. But there's a lot of variables that are at play when it comes to pop time and why that matters. For one, where was the pitch at? Was it the pitch right down the middle? Was it high? Was it low? The other thing is what's the time that it takes for the pitcher by the time he lifts his leg and actually throws the ball and it gets to home plate? A lot of the time, that the biggest issue isn't necessarily anything that the catcher does. It's especially at the college level, the pitchers take a long time to get the ball from the time that they pick up their leg and throw it. They just take so long. By the time the catcher catches the ball, they could have a 1-7 pop time. They're still not going to get the runner at second base. And so in situations like that, like you could have, like I said, a 1-7 pop time. It's not going to matter because by the time you get the ball, it took so long for it to get to you because the pitchers take long to get rid of the ball that you don't even have a chance to throw the runner out at second base. And if you look at actually like what are the actual averages from a pop time at the NCAA Division I level, it's anywhere from a 1-9 to a 2-2. And there's just it's a wide range for a lot of different reasons. But the thing we have to also consider is one, there's a lot of other elements that they take into consideration for who's catching. And the one that we're not even talking about today, but is the bat. If you have a catcher who is solid back there, calls a decent game, if they do actually call the game, receives well, blocks, does all these things well, and they absolutely rake, they're more likely to be a starting catcher than the guy who is just a defensive juggernaut, but receiving maybe is okay, pop time's pretty solid, but just can't hit it all. So that's the thing you have to take in consideration as well, is all the other variables and not just pop time. And the most important thing to consider is when we talk about pop time is what's the average in game. I know that everyone goes to showcases and you cheat at the showcases, and I don't blame you. Like I would do the same thing if I was a catcher. But just note that the coaches aren't going to be like, oh, this is a 1-9 catcher at PBR for a 1-9. We're going to put him higher on our board and someone we need to go see. That's not how it works, because everyone knows that catchers in showcases and pop times, for one, you're going to cheat a little bit. It's not going to be the same. And two, can you do it in game? At the end of the day, with all this showcase stuff, and none of it really matters in a showcase setting. The only thing that matters is what do you do between the white lines when the lights are on and the game's going on. That's the only thing that matters. And I remember when I was coaching in the Orioles organization, I was in low A. We did not have a single catcher who threw below a 2-0 in game the entire 100+ game season. Not one. So I find it hard to believe that there's all these players out there who are throwing 1-8s, 1-9s consistently when even at the professional level, I didn't even see one below a 2-0 the entire year. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. At the major league level, there's 18 catchers who are everyday catchers who are above a 2-0 on average. Let me repeat that again. There's over 18 catchers at the major league level who are the everyday catcher whose average pop time is above a 2-0. That should tell you something. So just to wrap up pop time, most important thing is it's about the average over the course of the season. Just taking one pop time here or there, there's going to be variables because of the pitch location. And then if you just take pop time showcase, you can cheat. There's a lot of different things that can happen. At the end of the day, what's the average in-game pop time? That's what matters more than anything else. And then there's us also all the other things that we're talking about that goes into catching, which I think probably makes a much bigger difference than just the pop time. So number 2 is pop time. Number 3 is blocking. Blocking is extremely important. I would actually put it probably as number 2 in terms of the most important skills of a catcher. And we'll talk about on average, how many runs a catcher saves at the major league level from a blocking standpoint. But blocking is extremely important. And you may be wondering, okay, why does it matter that we go through any more than just saying that from a technique standpoint or anything like that? Well, the answer is because what may work for what you're doing when you're catching somebody who throws 70, 80 miles an hour may not work from a technique standpoint when you're catching somebody who throws 90 miles an hour, 95 miles an hour. And so when coaches are evaluating you from a blocking standpoint, obviously at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the ball just stays in front of us, but we want to make sure we have good mechanics and good fundamentals too. So we give them confidence to know that, hey, we can still block a pitcher if they're throwing 95 plus, even though we're not catching that pitcher in today's game. So we know that pitchers are going to throw balls in the dirt, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen even more at the college and high school level than it does at the major league level, which makes it even more important that we're able to block the ball consistently. So from even just a fundamental standpoint, we want to make sure that, hey, we're an athletic setup. We're on the balls of our feet. Our chest is forward, but the glove's nice and relaxed. And at any point in time, we're ready to move. And our weight staying centered. This is sometimes I see this happening where the weight's off a little bit one way or another, and we're not able to get into that good blocking position because of that. And so when I say blocking position, so what I mean is we want to make sure our chest is rounded forward, gloves between our knees, elbows tight, our chin is down, straight tucked down, because we want to make sure that ball dies right in front of us. That's the most important thing. We want that ball dying right in front of us. And so we want those elbows being tight and chin straight down into our chest really helps with that. Combined with the fact that we want to make sure that our chest is square to the ball and not twisting off to the side. And when we do need to block from a side to side standpoint, we want to make sure we move first and then we drop down. I think that's really important to note. If something were to happen, and because it's going to happen, at times it's going to feel like popcorn where the ball is going off left to the right, we want to make sure that, hey, we have a quick recovery and we're not panicking at all. I think that's the thing is there's going to be times when the ball gets by us or maybe it gets out from us a little bit more than we would have liked it to. We can't panic. We're the leader of the field from a catching standpoint. So we want to make sure we have that neutral mindset and get back to that neutral spot where we are and be consistent. Some of the more common mistakes that I'll see from a blocking standpoint, I would say, is reaching forward with the glove and then popping up too soon. So we want to make sure we're staying down. Like I said before, that chin's tucked, elbows tight, glove straight down. We want to make sure we're staying down and not popping up too soon, and we're not reaching forward with the glove at all. I think those are some of the biggest mistakes I see from a blocking standpoint. And I think it's really important too that players watch major league catchers, watch the best catchers from a blocking standpoint. They're going to tell you and show you what it should look like. And whether it's one knee, no knees at all, like the same fundamentals apply. Whether you're down on one knee or not, that's going to be situational dependent. It's also going to be catcher dependent too, because there's some catchers who are more athletic and can get away with certain things than other catchers. And it doesn't really matter. There's successful catchers who do both. It's just at the end of the day is we got to make sure from a specific blocking standpoint, we still stay fundamentally sound. Now at the major league level, the best catchers over the course of the season save 3 to 5 runs just by blocking balls in the dirt. And that's at the highest level, right? Imagine what those numbers are from a run standpoint at the high school level or at the college level. That number is magnified. We don't even have the data to actually support that at the college level or the high school level. Similar to some of the other studies that we've talked about. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some more research and be able to find that out. But it's going to be way more than 3 to 5 runs than as the major league level. And think about it like this, like 3 to 5 runs over the course of the season. You're like, maybe that doesn't feel like a lot. Well, think about it from an RBI standpoint. From an RBI standpoint, that's another 3 to 5 RBIs from a hitting standpoint. So it's the same thing from a defensive standpoint. It's probably going to equate to 8 to 10 runs potentially at the college level, I would say, because there's also going to be a lot more dirt balls thrown at the college level than there is at the major league level, just because the pitching's not as good. So that makes it even more important for us to be able to block balls, and it's going to help out our team from a run standpoint. So I think that that's going to be multiple wins that will be able to help out your team at the college level once you do get to that level. And so that's why coaches are so bent on evaluating from a receiving standpoint, from a blocking standpoint, and more so there than a throwing standpoint, because you're going to save a lot more runs by receiving and blocking. Number 4 is arm action. So here are some of the things that coaches are looking for when evaluating a catcher's arm action. So number 1 is, okay, how quickly do they get rid of the ball? Like, obviously this is going to be the most important thing when it comes to evaluating a catcher's arm action. So we want to get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. But one of the things I will say too is coaches are looking to see like how smooth the arm action is. Like, is it something that is like really herky jerky, or is it smooth? Is it a long arm action as well? And so when we watch some of the best catchers, and we watch some of the best college catchers specifically when it comes to an arm action standpoint, we're able to see that they get the ball out quickly, but it's a smooth arm action as well. But the thing is like they're not getting the ball out so quickly, and it's such a short arm action that there's nothing behind the ball. Like, they're still able to get good velocity behind the ball. And one of the things that I will say is arm action is one of the things that is the hardest to change after a certain point. And so one of the things coaches will look for when evaluating catchers in general is like, okay, like and this is just how they look at players in general, is like, what are some of the things that we think can improve? And then what are some of the things where it's like, man, this is going to be a several year project to improve? And I would honestly say like someone's arm action, specifically position players, is usually one of the ones that is the hardest to improve. So it's something where like maybe you have the edge up in one area or another from a catching standpoint, but they feel like they could help develop another part of a catcher's arsenal versus the arm action part where you struggle with a little bit. And so they may take that other catcher specifically for that, just because cleaning up a catcher's arm action or any position player's arm action can be tough for it to translate into the actual game itself. And so we look at like from an arm action standpoint, there's usually like players who are more over the top. And so the throw comes from what that just that high arm slot right above the shoulder. Some I've seen are more of that 3/4, even from a catching standpoint. This is more rare. But the most important thing is just we want to have a clean, simple arm action and smooth mechanics without any extra movement. That's the most important thing when it comes to a catcher's arm action. And if you can show that consistently, like, you're going to be able to you just stand out amongst a lot of the other players that are out there. Number 5 is going to be footwork. Footwork's one of those things where coaches are looking at it, and it's obviously important. I think some coaches can feel like they can help some players out improve their footwork, whereas arm action, like I said before, it's one of those things where you either have it or you don't. So here are some of the things that coaches are looking for when evaluating catchers from a footwork standpoint. So the first thing is like, how explosive is their first step when it comes to whether or not that is like getting into an actual throwing position, or whether that be like maybe they have to get into a blocking position. Like, it's really important that wherever they're throwing to it, when they're throwing to second base, when they're throwing to third base or whatever, like, are they able to explode and really get out there with that first explosive step? And that's important. And then the other thing is just, are they able to maintain body control when moving to both sides, when throwing to bases, when maybe they have to block a ball, pick the ball up and then throw it to a base, or maybe throw it to first base. So it really comes down to a lot of footwork is just athleticism. Like, if you're a good athlete, you probably have pretty good footwork. And so it comes down to just how quickly can you get into a throwing or blocking position while maintaining body control and transferring your weight smoothly throughout the throws and throughout the blocks as well. And so having good footwork helps with all of those things. And I would say one of the things that is the most important when it comes to evaluating catchers is going to be the makeup piece. I mean, they are honestly more the captain of the field and the leader back there. And so you have to have good makeup from a catching standpoint. So we're going to now talk about several things that coaches look for from a makeup standpoint when evaluating catchers. So first off, the obvious one, which is going to be strong leadership and communication skills. And I think this is something that's it's obvious, but it's still very important. Where we want to make sure we have high baseball IQ. We're not showing the pitcher up, and this is one of the things that I'll see at times when watching games. Is maybe there's a pitcher who overthrows the catcher, or they throw another ball in the dirt and then it gets by the catcher, or something like that happens. They throw the wrong pitch, whatever it is, and the catcher, it's obvious that the catcher shows them up, and whether it be they throw their hands up or whatever it is, it's a really bad look. Because here's the thing, everybody knows what happened, and everybody knows at times that it's not your fault. And so by you throwing your hands up, that only makes you look bad, because everyone else knows that we know that it was the pitcher who threw the ball in the dirt or who made the mistake and threw the wrong pitch. So by you throwing your hands up and showing up your pitcher, all it does is make you look worse more than anybody else on the field. So having that mental toughness when it comes to that is really important. And honestly, you stick out. You stick out like a sore thumb when stuff like that happens, and you shake it off like nothing happens at all, and you maintain that strong, neutral mindset that we've talked about in the past as well. And then I think from a work ethic standpoint, like catchers should be, and they usually are, notorious for having a really strong work ethic, because you're somebody who you usually get less swings out of anybody else because you're always catching bullpens, doing extra work. You're somebody who is always going a step further and trying to take their game a step further and improving things. And I think from a coachability standpoint, one of the things that coaches want, especially from a catcher standpoint, is just hunger to improve, hunger to do more work, to get better, and to just improve, whether it be offensively, defensively. All those things matter, because again, a lot of times you want your catcher to be vocal and take charge of things. And also that comes into taking charge of in-game situations, whether it be taking charge of the infield, or maybe it's also just managing pitchers in a way that is individualized to them, and understanding your own pitcher, understanding that some pitchers, they need a pat on the back and tell them how good they are to get them back into gear. And then other pitchers, you got to get on them a little bit more. And so building those relationships with your pitchers, and how important that is. And then just understanding that, hey, like there's going to be times when adversity hits from a catching standpoint, whether that be errors in the field, whether it be you make errors or pass balls. And it's like, can you maintain that focus after all that happens, and really be the glue when it comes to everybody out on the field and your entire team? And so that's why makeup is just extremely important from a catching standpoint. And it's something that you can obviously change. I mean, this is the one area of your game from a catching standpoint that you have complete control over. We talked about arm action earlier, and how sometimes from an arm action standpoint, you can't always control everything, and you can do the best you possibly can from an arm action standpoint. And at some point, your arm action, it is what it is. Makeup is something you control. So if you think that you need to improve your makeup, or people saying that like maybe you need to do better job working with the pitchers, or taking charge of the infield, being more vocal, whatever it is, you have complete control over that. And so that's why I love makeup. I love talking about it. I think it's really important, but more than anything else, just you have complete control over your makeup. Number 7, which is the very last thing of all the 7 things that coaches look for when evaluating a catcher, is the stamina piece. It gets hot behind the plate. You got all the gear on. You're catching. You're kind of getting beat up at times throughout the game. And so, from a catching standpoint and evaluating a catcher standpoint, it's, hey, like, do we have the stamina to be an everyday catcher? And that's something that you have to make sure you're ready for from a physical standpoint, from a lifting standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint. That was one of the things that, honestly, I think people would be surprised at more times than not, is when, if you were able to fall around a major league catcher, is like how serious they take the nutrition, how serious they take the weight room and all these things, because they know that their body has to take that toll and get over the course of a 160 plus game season. I mean, whenever I see a catcher like Yadier Molina who's catching over 160 games in a season, And then I see or hear players say like, oh, like they're too tired to catch after catching for 4 or 5 days in a row. I mean, it's like, man, something's either your preparation isn't right or the mental piece isn't right. Like something isn't right. And so that's why the stamina piece is so important, because coaches want somebody. It's like, man, this is our guy. This is our everyday guy who can stay focused late in the games, who can battle when they're tired and still maintain that focus no matter what happens and have that stamina. And that's so important from a and then also, like, you have to be able to manage your workload a little bit. Like, maybe there's going to be times when you don't hit as much as everybody else, or you don't do the extra reps like everybody else is, because you have to manage your body and make sure that you're going to be good to go once the game starts. And so, like, that's something that you're going to always have to work on and also just be aware of. I think from a self-awareness standpoint, it's important to understand yourself, understand how good of an athlete you are, understand, the positions you can get yourself in, what you need to do to prepare. Like all these different things matter a ton when it comes to your durability and your stamina from a catching standpoint. All right, so those are the 7 things that college coaches look for when evaluating a catcher, specifically a high school catcher. Hope you enjoy them. Hope you learned something. If you did, or if you didn't, whatever, hopefully you enjoyed it. But if you did enjoy it, please make sure to share the episode. Please reach out if you have any questions at all. And make sure to subscribe for the next video or podcast if you're listening on the audio feed. Thanks, and we'll see everybody next week.